After hearing different sides from different people, we were finally able to see the whole picture. Kazuma's attack on the compounds was a diversion, which resulted in many wounded soldiers, but luckily no deaths. On the contrary, the Aburao no Koji incident had resulted in 4 deaths, including Ito of the Guardians of the Imperial Tomb. Whoops. The fallen were all former Shinsengumi warriors, so I had been mildly familiar with some of them. Ito-san, Monai, Hattori, and Heisuke. At least that's what we had told to the public. Heisuke was now pronounced dead to the public eye. Heisuke, there you are.
Ah, nanda. Souma ka. Bikkuri sasen na yo.
A familiar voice had returned in the dojo, which was dim and empty during these hours. Heisuke stood alone in the dojo, and he smiled warily as he turned to face us.
変な話だよな。御陵エジに入るとき、もうお前らとは二度と会えねえかもって思ってたのに。まさかこんな形で戻ってくることになっちまうなんてさ。
How do you feel?
おかげさんでなんともねえって。ほら、見てくれよ。あれだけ深い傷だったのに、もう傷跡一つ残ってねえだろ。
Heisuke laughed lightheartedly, and he swung his arms back and forth. Just like he said, there was no sign that he was hurt at all. But that didn't surprise me. Heisuke unfortunately couldn't stay out in the sun anymore, but now his body could heal at a superhuman rate. Now he was a fury. Heisuke...
そんな顔すんなって。正直言うとさ、よく覚えてねえんだ。羅刹になっちまった時のことは。痛くて、苦しくて、死にたくなくて。それで気づいたら羅刹になってた。あんな力に頼るぐらいなら死んだ方がマシって思ってたのにな。
Oh my god. Heisuke was taken aback now, as if he had said something to embarrass himself. We stood there silently. Although the wounds all over his body had disappeared, as if he'd never fought at all, there was still a hole where his heart used to be. Or at least, that was the impression he gave.
で、俺を探してたみたいだけど、どうした？
はい、宣告、土方副長に頼まれたんです。今後の東堂さんの生活に不便がないように取り計らえって。
ああ、そういやそっか。これからはできねえことが増えるもんな。日中にお前ら連れて大通りの茶屋で団子食い歩くのも。
Oh, my heart!
佐野さんや新八さんと酒を飲みに行くのも。
My heart times two! What could we even say to Heisuke to lighten how desolate he felt in this new life? He was still alive, but for all intents and purposes, he was dead to the rest of the world. He now had to make do with navigating the rest of his life in the dreariness of nightfall.
東堂さん、俺たちにできることがあったら何でも言ってください。
Of course, we'll do anything to cheer you up, Heisuke. I'm not sure if anything I make would be as good as the shops in Kyo, but I can make odango.
原田さんたちと飲むんだったら酒の買い出しも毎日行きますから。
お前らな、それ慰めてくれてんのか。
Even if we weren't doing the best job, I guess our intentions had been read clearly by Heisuke. Heisuke's expression softened a little.
けど酒の買い出しか。どうしてだろうな。そこまで似てねえのにさ、相馬を見てるとどういうわけか、あいつのことを思い出しちまう。
Who? Oh, I have an idea in my head, but I'm not sure.
伊吹龍之介。
I was right! It was Ibuki! Ryonosuke Ibuki, a boy who formerly resided in the headquarters of the Roshigumi, who were the predecessors to the Shinsengumi. Don't worry, I'm pretty sure we get to see Ibuki soon, I swear. I thought I heard that name before. I was trying to think of where I'd heard it before, but Heisuke then gave me a hint.
前に名前だけちらっと言ったけど、お前は面識のねえ相手だよ。あいつが新選組にいたのはお前らがまだいなかった頃のことだしさ。
By mere weeks? Months? Days? I'm not quite sure actually.
なら元大使ということですか。
いや、あいつは一緒にいたけど大使じゃなかった。
He was one of you guys, but not a warrior? He was in a similar position. I was in a similar position, so I couldn't help but feel a certain kinship in that regard. If what Heisuke had said were true, then there was someone else like me in the Shinsengumi. People are making noises upstairs.
あいつの話は楽しい話ばかりじゃねえけど。
Nope, it's not.
それでも聞きたいなら話してやるよ。伊吹龍之介と浪士組の話を。
Oh my god, is it story time? Is it story time from Heisuke? Heisuke looked at me as he asked, and I said, I'd love to hear it. Ryonosuke Ibuki. I had never met him, nor had I heard about him. I wasn't even sure what he looked like, but I'd love to know more about him, Heisuke. I was urged by a strange curiosity to learn more about him, so we nodded towards each other. Where's my water bottle? There it is. I need water.
俺は新選組に入って日が浅い。だからこそ知りたいんです。俺の知らない昔の新選組の姿を。先輩たちが何を引き継いで何を背負ってきたのかを。
Heisuke smiled brightly, and he took a deep breath before beginning his story. Story time! Oh, is this supposed to be like, Okita's flashback? Oh, Lord. A story about a time before us, about the Roshigumi. Aside from Kondo-san's designation as chief, there was another position known as the head captain. Did that get into color for a split second? This title was fulfilled by someone named Kamo Serizawa.
新選組の元局長ですから、俺も芹沢さんの名前は聞いています。でも、誰も詳しくは語ってくれなかった。その芹沢さんというのはどんな人だったんですか？
説明しづらいんだけど、いい人じゃなかったのは確かだな。
Not at all.
何しろ勝手に金策するし、島原で大騒ぎを起こしちまうし、 商家から賄賂は取るし、それにこの新選組に羅刹って存在を持ち込んだのもあの人だ。
待ってください。本当にそんな人が組を率いる立場だったんですか？
I could see how Soma was a little surprised, given how the Shinsengumi, as he knew it, was led by Kondo-san, who always acted as a model authority. Soma's voice had a hint of judgment, but Heisuke simply smiled back and continued with his tale.
確かにろくでもねえ人だったよ。暴力を振るうのもいつものことだったしさ。けどな、あの人がいなかったら浪士組は食うことさえできなかったんだぜ。近藤さんや土方さんには理想があったけど、あの頃はまだ現実が見えてなかった。逆に芹沢さんは現実を見てたんだ。武士を名乗るだけじゃ飯は食えねえってよくわかってる人だった。で、その芹沢さんの小姓代わりをさせられてたのが、さっき話に出てた伊吹龍之介。
Why was it just briefly in color? That is so weird. Forced? So he didn't volunteer to join the Shinsengumi?
ああ、龍之介はもともと行き倒れてたのを芹沢さんに拾われたんだ。武士なんて大っ嫌いって毎日言ってたけど、それでも拾われた義理を果たすためにずっと芹沢さんの世話をしてた。乱暴者の芹沢さんに殴られても蹴られても叩かれても、いつでも逃げる機会はあったのに、結局芹沢さんが死ぬまで去らなかった。
So, how did Serizawa, pass away?
ああ、俺たちが殺した。
It came out of Heisuke's mouth so nonchalantly. Serizawa's behavior became impossible to ignore, so the leaders ordered his death. Even with him being a fury, they killed him. Following this whole debacle, the man known as Ibuki had disappeared.
初めて会った時、相馬が持ってた錦絵があっただろう。あれが元新選組局長芹沢かも。芹沢さんの羅刹になった姿だ。
One of the chiefs and founders of the Roshigumi. He is the one who introduced the water of life to the Shinsengumi.
なるほど。だから俺が錦絵を持っていた時、皆驚いてたんですね。
はあ、羅刹になった芹沢さんの絵なんて龍之介以外に描けるやつはいねえからさ。
Come to think of it, I remember everyone showing signs of relief upon seeing the picture. Heisuke paused from telling his story for a moment. Then he looked at Souma.
なあ、相馬。前も軽く聞いたけど、改めて詳しく教えてくれよ。お前はどうしてあの絵を手に入れたんだ？
俺は江戸で路銀をなくした際、ある絵師に一宿一般の恩を受けました。その際彼は好きな絵を持って行って路銀の足しにしろと言ってくれたんです。
Oh my god. So, that man was Ibuki then?
おそらく。けどあの絵を譲るつもりはなかったんだと思います。数ある絵の中から俺があれを選んだら顔色を変えて慌てていましたから。
He chose it? Oh shit, it's fate.
それでも俺はどうしても気になったんです。脈打つように生々しかったあの絵が。
And then we find out Serizawa actually possessed a goddamn woodblock.
それが相馬をこの新選組に導いたって思うと 因縁めいたものを感じちまうな。
Exactly, Heisuke, exactly. After finishing his story, Heisuke seemed to feel a great pang of relief after letting out a big sigh.
でもさ、本当にほっとしてるんだよ。龍之介のやつが生きててくれて。あいつは浪士組に無理やり連れてこられて、一緒に過ごしてくうちにこっちの事情に巻き込まれちまって、それで死んじまったら悲しいもんな。本当によかった。
Judging by Heisuke's relief, I could sense that Heisuke and Ibuki were really close back in the day. It seemed as if knowing Ibuki was alive brought him some well-needed perspective. For what it's worth, Heisuke, I think we feel the same about you. I'm also really happy to hear you're alive, no matter what may have happened.
きっと伊吹さんも東堂さんが生きていることを喜ぶんじゃないでしょうか。
ああ、あいつならきっとそうだ。
Heisuke paused, squinting to think for a second, then turned his back on us and began to walk off.
たくお前ら、あんまし優しくすんなよな。
When he turned around again, it was wearing that smile that so perfectly fit the old Heisuke. As it was slowly dissolving into the darkness, I noticed Heisuke looked smaller than usual. Even then, he did his best to provide us some cheer at the end of it all. He looked into the distance longingly. It was clear Heisuke wasn't who he used to be. I wonder what'll become of Heisuke.
おそらく羅刹隊に入るんだと思います。
Because he'd already died once, don't you think he'd think twice before fighting again? I mean, I shouldn't have been one to presume how Heisuke might have felt, but knowing how much this has affected him, I couldn't help but ask. Souma began muttering to himself, but his voice had felt a little sympathetic.
俺には東堂さんの気持ちも少しはわかる気がします。例えばあの風間やミキのような手強い敵と刃を交えることになった時、俺は先輩を守るつもりだけど、それでももし力が及ばず力尽きかけた時、そこに不可能を可能にする力、約束を果たすことができる力があったなら、
I wanted so badly to say, please don't. But there was nothing I could really say.
俺はきっと
Souma looked to me, as if beckoning me to smile, but I couldn't bring myself to answer him. Before November ended, the Guardians of the Imperial Tomb, which was Ito-san's faction, had been undergoing serious internal strife. Saito-san had joined the Guardians of the Imperial Tomb as the Shinsengumi spy. And based on the intelligence report, the Shinsengumi had assassinated Ito-san. The attack on the Guardians eventually became known as the Aburano Koji incident. During this incident, the demons in the Satsuma intervened, and Heisuke had suffered a critical injury during the resulting altercation. In order for Heisuke to survive, he was forced to drink the serum. At the same time, Chikage Kazuma had planned to execute a coordinated attack on the compounds. The serum, brought into the Shinsengumi by my father, was now slowly eating all of them away. My heart began sinking from the weight of all this.